are a family. We're united or we perish. We're safe. For now. But they are coming for us.
We want the law-abiding people of Blackbird to feel safe in their beds at night.
I don't know how I ever thought that this could work.
All of this is my fault.
You are scared of them.
I know what I have to do. There's a man killed, murdered by a feral.
But our orders are to stay down here.
I'm gonna get the person who killed him. I'm gonna get him whatever it takes.
We ain't trapped up here, they trapped down there.
We need you right now. I need you.
I want you to know that I made my choice.
That's what you wanted. You're Brennan now. You wanted this stick with every bone in your body.
Baby, you understand me now. If sometimes you see that I'm a man.
We're all friends here.
We ain't your friend, boy. Don't you know no one alive can be an angel?
This ain't about me or you anymore. This is about the law.
You see somebody.
When they came up here, we scared them off, but that won't be the last of it.
If you're lying, you're gonna pay for it.
They're animals. They're beasts. They're lost. And you know what? I hope they rot in whatever hell they're heading to.
Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
Congratulations on the show. I love this
Thanks,
show.
man.
And I'm so excited it's coming back so quickly.
Look at that picture. It's so,
Yeah,
such
right?
a strange picture. It looks like I'm just saying,
What were they saying to Channel when they were taking that photo? Like, that's your war cry.
I don't even remember.
Well, I love it. I mean, sometimes you'll get the first season of a show, and then you'll have to wait, 2 years, 3 years. They'll announce it. It takes too long. We're getting the next season. We're getting this next season this month, where I'm so excited about it. Tell me when they first pitched this to you. When they first came to you with the concept of this show, what did they say to you?
They said read the script because it was like nothing else that I'd ever read. In the first episode, like on the second page, it said two big hairy guys, both covered in old Norse and runic tattoos. One of them is chained to a tree, and they're kicking the crap out of each other. And I was like, what is this? But that was what sort of drew me to it. Was it was just the fact that we have these mystical wolves throughout the show, right alongside somebody who has an oxy addiction. I think it's a really unique sort of blend.
Yeah, and there are people that exist like this in the world. I mean, did they give you any sort of articles or research? Were they basing this off of anything when they were telling you about the creation of the show?
For the most part, no. I mean, it's obviously a fictional show, so we just sort of, did our own sort of bits of research, with the exception of Thomas, who plays Wade on the show. He went down because he's from Australia and really needed to immerse himself, and it really, reflected in his performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you show up for the first read or the meeting, are they like, you look just like you need to look for this show? Are you always rocking the long hair, the beard, sort of? Yeah, was that your appearance when you showed up?
Yeah, I mean, it's all my appearance is always kind of like this. Like for 20 years, anything that you see me in that I don't have a beard, it's because they're like, "Can you please cut the beard?" But for this show, I literally got a dozen calls, and I was shooting something else at the time, and from the producers going, "Please don't shave, please leave the hair."
They put an insurance policy on the beard. I'm sure they wanted to do that. Now, tell me a little bit about your character, Lil Foster. I mean, when you look at this guy, what are you seeing? What do you see? He's a bit of a soldier, but I mean, what is he to you? What's this character like?
I think he's somebody who's led a very sheltered life in the shadow of like a very domineering father. you know. But in a closed society, you know, you're scared a lot of the time if you're not exposed to a greater worldview. You know, you're gonna be afraid of what's out there, and that extends itself to you know, being under his father, and also very codependent on this woman that he's been in love with. But he slowly but surely is finding out who he is as a man and a human being. So.
I mean, when you say father, you're talking about the great David Morse. So how is it like to work with that guy? I mean, he is such a fantastic actor. When did you guys first meet? Was it on set, or was it a little coffee klatch before that?
No, we met on set, but I'll tell you, it's one of those, like, about 20 years ago, I wrote up this list of actors that I wanted to work with. And it was only about 12 actors long, and on that list was David Morse, Paul Giamatti, you know, Giancarlo Esposito, among others. And so I had David is one of the main reasons why I took this job, because he's just, you know, he's class, you know, he's such a classy. He's like Gene Hackman, you know. It's like you never catch the guy acting, it was one of those moments recently where, you know, it was like 20 years ago I made that list, and then, I don't know, a week ago, you know, you just have those little flash forwards where I was, you know, doing a press event with him, and we're standing there getting our picture taken together, and the room happened to smell like cookies. And I kind of look over at him, and we're kind of whispering to each other, and he just goes, "Smells like cookies." Smells like good cookies. And I was just like, oh, you know, you just flash forward to that moment. So
that's something for the memoir for sure. Now, in season 1, was there any scene with David that you especially loved getting to dig in on with him?
There's a scene where I go and I kill this, you know, accidentally kill this old man, and he kind of comes and says that he's proud of me. And that was a real fun scene because it had some nuance to it.
And you mentioned Paul Giamatti. For people who don't know, Paul Giamatti is a producer of this show.
Yeah.
I mean, so tell me a little bit about, you know, did you get to meet him? Was he, how involved is he with the process?
He's very involved with the process. His production company, you know, was the one behind bringing it to WGN and developing it. He's not there all the time because he's shooting another show, but him and his producing partner are very, very involved.
Any possible chance of Paul Giamatti showing up on the show?
I sure hope so. I keep nudging him about it. I keep nudging him.
I'd love to see him with a huge beard. I feel like that'd be a great look for him.
Sure.
But he's so great on Billions, so I'm sure
he is good.
He's keeping him pretty busy.
Yeah, man.
You know, for this next season, what can people expect? Obviously, I don't want to give too much away. I've seen the first episode. We left things as a little bit of the clash between your clan and the police is kind of hitting a fever pitch. What can people expect for the next season?
Everything's like most great shows, you know, it's just amped up. Is real early on, the coal company brings in this sort of fixer that's even worse than the one that they had before. And also the Ferrells find out that they're not alone on the mountain. We introduce some more characters from another side of the mountain. So we expound upon the Shea Mountain sort of mythology.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the things about this show that is, it taps into something that's very primal, which is this ownership of your land, of where you live. And I think that is a great, I guess, motivation, you know, to have for a character. I mean, what are you picturing when you're playing this character who is defending basically where he grew up? They're trying to get evicted. They're basically a coal mining company's trying to evict them from their own homes. What are you channeling? What are you thinking of? Are you sort of putting yourself in those shoes, or are you just reading what's on the script in these cases?
Well, no, I is, you know, forcefully taking the land of an indigenous people as, you know, a part of our history. So, you know, but and WGN, what I really respect about them is a lot of their programming sort of focuses on is really sort of aimed at the heart of, you know, telling what it's like to live in America, you know, and not necessarily all the sort of bubblegum and cherry pie of it all. Is, you know, one of their big shows to begin with was about the making of the atomic bomb, or about the
Manhattan, that was a great show, yeah.
or the Salem witch trials, which is like sort of shining these a light into these dark corners of our collective past. So I try to bring an amount of that, but on an actor level, all you can do is identify with the character that you're playing, and try to tap into some universal themes. And I think that the reason that this show is successful is because when you boil it all down, the show is just about the decision of whether to choose love or greed, and and I think that that's an interpersonal thing that everybody deals with on some level.
Yeah. The show takes place in Kentucky, but you guys actually shoot it in Pennsylvania. But the woods are beautiful. I mean, the whole...
We shoot in Pittsburgh, in the back of a Jewish day camp.
That's great. There we go. Clap for Pittsburgh.
She might have been clapping for day camp. You don't know.
Exactly. It's very true. What's it like to sort of get into those surroundings? Do those really help you as far as when you're playing at the mountain, doing the scenes that are on the mountain? What's it like to film there? Yeah, sure.
I mean, when we first read the script for the first season, you're like, oh man, I hope the sets don't suck, because they really are like a character in the piece. But the production design and the cinematography of the piece really capture what the creators put down. So.
And as far as the full clan, I mean, did you guys get together before the show started shooting, and how have you guys sort of built that bond that is in the show, written in the show, of course, but how are you guys as actors, have you guys created that relationship?
We got together early on, and there was a lot of collaboration on our part with the creators, which is genuinely rare. But for the most part, there's not a lot of like hanging out, besides that, because so much of the stuff, to be totally honest, is about infighting amongst the clan members. So it's not really necessary for us to be buddy-buddy.
Right. I mean, but speaking of a group of people, I mean, obviously you're widely recognized from Sons of Anarchy, which is such an amazing show. I'm not sure if you guys know that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you get still approached, even, obviously your character met an untimely end, and then the show is obviously over, but people are still very much watching that show. Do you get approached a lot about Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah, sure.
And Opie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do they ask you? I feel like, what's the question you most get field? Do you really ride motorcycles? Do you still hang out with the guys?
Yeah, sure, which I do, both. But a funny story, recently I was at a comic convention signing autographs, and a guy came up and he said, I want you to autograph something. And I said, okay, and he pulled out a receipt and put it down. And I said, you want me to sign this? He said, yep. And I said, all right. And I signed it, and I said, why am I signing a receipt? And he said, because during your death, I took my beer and I threw it at my television, and I broke my television, and that's the receipt for the new television.
Wow, that is amazing. Those conventions, I'm sure you get a lot of outpouring from fans, but who from the cast do you get to see the most often, would you say? Is it the Ron Perlmans? Is it the Charlie?
No, probably Charlie and Boone, Mark Boone Jr. We talk, especially Boone and I, daily almost. I mean, we legitimately, we're like family. So,
you guys, what do you ride personally? I know I've talked to Charlie a couple of times about his motorcycles, but what do you have? What do you like to ride?
I'm in between bikes because I spend so much time now in Pittsburgh that I sold my bike because I didn't want to leave it. So I just sold my bike. So I'm in between bikes as we speak.
And, Kurt Sutter, I mean, he's one of those guys. He's talked about the prequel possibly happening. He's working on that. He's working on some shows that people obviously want more Sons of Anarchy content. Would you star in something new about those guys or those characters?
Sure. It's funny. I was texting with him last night about when I said, hey, man, when you do the first 9, I'm around.
What is he like as a show creator? He's such an interesting guy. I mean, can you give us a little peek into that psyche of
He's a dark wizard. He's a black magician. Legitimately, he's a lot of the times you'll hear these stories of a lot of showrunners, being very sort of megalomaniacal, which is, you know, to be expected when you're responsible for the creation of a, you know, essentially, you know, a multi-million-dollar, you know, corporation that is a show. You know, the buck ends with you. And he had a very clear idea of what it is that he wanted to do, and spoke up very frequently, very loudly, to us, to the network, and you know, and I do commend him for that. So,
absolutely. Do you have any? I'm sure that show is so embraced by the motorcycle culture. I'm sure you get approached all the time by bikers. I mean, what do they tell you? Do they? That's like a bit of their, you know, the telling of their story. I'm sure they connect with that. And you had a former Hell's Angel actually in the cast. So yeah,
David LaBrava.
Like?
Yeah, played Happy.
Yeah.
But the best part is that the majority of you know, comments that I get from big, huge bikers is for hair care tips. It's the truth.
They want to know how to grow that beard. Okay, so give it to us.
No.
How can I grow a beard? Come on. I need to know this.
Don't cut it. Don't cut the hair. Don't cut the beard.
Now, when the beard does eventually come off here and there.
Whoa,
okay.
Hey.
Sorry.
I've known you for 10 minutes, buddy.
if the beard was to come off, I'm sure people would recognize you from Save It Private Ryan. I love that movie so much. One of the best war movies ever made. Absolutely. I'd love just to get a glimmer into what it was to make that film with those guys before, obviously, the Tom Hanks, the Matt Damons. You know, tell us a little bit about that experience if you could.
No, you know, I was only there for a week, but it was one of those. It was like, as an actor, I had one of those moments that was a bit like, you know, being alone on the golf course and making a hole in one. You know, I auditioned for the role. They gave me the role. They said, you're going to fly out in 12 hours to go to London to shoot this tomorrow. And I said, okay. Got in the plane, went over there, went straight from the airport to the set. They said, can you please cut your beard and your hair? And I said, yes, okay. And then they took me like straight into wardrobe and straight to the set. And I went straight to the set, and Steven Spielberg was there, and he was like, you're my guy. And I was like, I guess so. And he said, you want to go have lunch?
I'm on set.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was jet lagged. I had allergies. I was like, I don't know where I am. Am I talking to Steven Spielberg right now? And he said, let's go have some lunch. So we sat down and had lunch, and I'm a director as well, so we were talking about, you know, the industry and our favorite movies and favorite performances and blah, 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 blah. I did my one scene, and then after that, I said, all right, well, I'm out of here. And he said, how long do they have you staying here? And I said, for another 10 days. He said, why don't you come out to the set? So for 10 days, making Saving Private Ryan, it was the script supervisor, Steven Spielberg, and me sitting there just sort of, you know, absorbing. And at the end of it, as I was leaving, he turns to me and he goes, you know, oh, well, I'm glad you were here. I thought your performance was great, and it was nice to get to know you. And he says, you remind me so much of Orson Welles. And it was like one of those, like, oh my God, like, did anybody see it? Did anybody see it? And I was like, no. I was like, no one's ever going to believe that Steven Spielberg just said that I reminded him of Orson Welles.
Oh,
so
good.
Yeah.
You know, being a director, I mean, what is like the one nugget of information that you learned from shadowing Steven Spielberg for about 10 days?
I guess that don't overthink it. And if you're completely and totally lost, have your actors just do the scene and watch where it is, where you naturally stand, to watch what's happening and start there. That's it.
Yeah, and speaking of military movies, I mean, We Were Soldiers was another great film that I really loved. And Mel Gibson has obviously made Hacksaw Ridge. I mean, tell us a little bit about working with him and a character like that.
Yeah, no, Mel, his energy actually reminded me a lot of my father. He's just going. He
seems like that when you meet him. Yeah.
Yeah. But we had a blast. We had a blast doing that movie. What was the question?
Just, you know, a little bit of working with him, how he was, you know, his passion, exactly his motor.
Yeah, he was all inclusive to everybody. You know, he was very inclusive to anybody who was a part of the production, and like nothing was off limits. So really cool guy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and inclusive. I mean, I have some friends who work with dogs, and you're a big proponent to adoption. You know, adopting dogs. And can you tell us a little about what adopting dogs have brought to your life? And
Adopting and training dogs. I'm actually training right now with a very, very highly acclaimed trainer named Paul Owens, who's one of the sort of founders of compassionate non-force dog training. And there's a very sort of sweet science to it that I'm very compelled to do. So I've been doing that for a while now.
how many dogs do you have?
I can't tell you that.
Oh, no. More than one.
Yes. More than one, less than 15.
Is there any great story about how a dog has found its way into your life?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. This was probably 15 years ago or so. We had 3 dogs that have all passed away. This was about 10 years ago. But we had 2 dogs at the time, and one time my wife says, there's some people on our back. We had like a carport, and there's 15 people in our carport looking under your car, and you better go see what it is. So I went out there, and this neighborhood had been following this dog that was on the street that had been sort of throughout the neighborhood for about a week. And he was a chow, and he was all banged up. He must have been a fighting dog that like had escaped. And so I looked under there, and I kind of called everybody off, and we got him out. And he was real scared, and then this lady pulled up, and she actually was a dog walker and volunteered at the local shelter, so she picked him up and was walking him back to her big van. And it was one of those things, and as she starts to walk away, he looks at me.
The dog is looking at you.
Like this, and follows me as he's walking for like a block, and the dog's just looking at me the whole time. And she gets to the van, and she's opening it, and she's looking at me again. And I'm like, all right, hold on. All right, hold on. You're staying with me, buddy. So that was one of them.
Oh, that's an amazing story. I mean, those are the things I feel like, those connections that you can never replace. They're like people, exactly.
Yeah.
I love
that. Those, animals are soulmates too. So.
Well, thank you so much for chatting about Outsiders. I think we have some questions here in the audience.
Make them good.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I was wondering, do you enjoy playing characters that are more similar to you or different than you?
I like ones that are different because, it's a little bit of an internal exercise, which is to see how similar you actually are. And especially if you in television, when you get a prolonged time to be able to investigate those parts of yourself, and also if you think something is vastly different than yourself, the longer that you stay with it, you usually see more similarities than differences.
Nice. Next question right there.
Hey, man. I wanted to know how the Norse mythology sort of played into the story of the show, and also wanted to mention how sick your Twitter handle is. I was wondering the story behind the Rambo Donkey Kong. I was wondering what the story behind that was. I'm sure you get a lot of
sounds
about it.
Dope. Like, what else do you need? I've had that for so long. I don't know. It was just one of those like, that sounds good. But for the Norse mythology, the ferals are sort of descendants of, we don't put too fine a point on it, but the old tongue that they speak is sort of a mixture of Welsh, Gaelic, and bits of Scot, So they're I can't tell you too much because, especially for season 3 as it comes along, the 3 clans that are on top of the mountain are really sort of investigated, so you'll have to stick around for that part.
Definitely. Okay, so one last question right there.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good.
I love the jewelry and bracelets. We're rocking and rolling today.
Nice.
So I know we're in the same kind of club, beard gang all day, every day.
Okay.
Tell people what's the best part of having a beard.
What's well, the worst part is when it's hot, you're a good 15 degrees hotter. The best part about having a beard, I think, to bring in a little bit of, yogic knowledge, is in the Kundalini tradition, which is one of the traditions that I follow, is that the tip of the chin for men is one of the most emotional centers of the body, along the energetic, chakra line or the nadis. But women are actually stronger than men. That's why they don't need this sort of cushion, but we need this cushion. And and when men have a beard, they feel more confident. And when they shave it off, they go, "Why did I do that? I look like a child. I feel so naked." There's a reason for that. So
I think we all learned something today.
Oh,
that's
good.
for sure. Outsiders, January 24th on WGN. Thank you so much, Ryan Hurst. I really appreciate it. Great conversation.